video. Here we go. We are live from state-controlled Britain. Here we are, 5 p.m. in the afternoon. And with me I have Carnivore Muscle. Hello, Jonathan.
How's it going, everyone? Sorry you won't be able to see that if you're in split screen mode at the moment. But anyway, how's everyone doing? If you leave your questions in the chat with a Q in front of them, we'll be happy to answer them. But we've got some interesting topics today. Well, thanks to Stephen for having a little look around and seeing what we're going to go through.
Okay.
From now. So what's good?
Yeah, I don't know how to get rid of the split screen on my screen. It's quite confusing, I think, actually. But anyway, we were just talking before we came on about the statins study. In fact, what I want to say is in science, you look for what's called signals. And I was just saying to Jonathan before we started, in the week, because I don't look at the mainstream. I don't think Jonathan does. You don't look at the mainstream stuff, do you? No, right. Yeah. So don't forget on audio, people can't see you doing that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so I don't read the national newspapers. I don't watch the BBC. But anyway, in the week, I start getting all these messages about, I can take statins now. There's no side effects. And I thought, well, where's this coming from? And it's coming from the mainstream. And it's a study that's being misreported. And I just wanted to say, I'll just put it on the screen. It's easier to say what's on the screen. And I think it's quite frightening, actually, how this is completely missed. So the way they do, it's basically there's a big circle, and how they have collected the data is they've made a ring here where the score is 1. And if the data trends away from 1 to higher numbers like 1.25 to, it sort of shows that there's a likelihood of a side effect. And if it trends away from 1, so it's 0.99 or less, then the chances of there being a side effect of note is, minimal. Anyway, that's explaining what you're looking at here. Now, high intensity statin treatment or low intensity or even moderate statin treatment, you've got new onset diabetes. So diabetes is one of the main causes, or is the biggest cause of people dying. Simple as that, really. And it's either diabetes or diabetes related conditions. And not only does this show here, this is the area of confidence or line of confidence. It's not 1, it's 1.25. So it clearly is a side effect according to this data. If you're going to believe all the data and you're going to use how they've collected it and how they've assembled it, then you have got to say that new onset diabetes in this study for both intense, moderate and low intensity statin treatment definitely causes new onset diabetes. No surprise there, actually. And then we've also got muscle pain and we've got muscle weakness, again showing. I'm not going to over egg it because, basically you can see the results there. It clearly shows new onset diabetes and muscle pain or weakness are side effects. That's not been reported at all. So the biggest killer, literally, in Western society, that doesn't matter. And in my Substack, I did say it's a bit like if someone told you that cucumbers are great and you found out he was a cucumber salesperson, you wouldn't listen to it. Well, that study is funded by virtually every statin manufacturer there is going. So, wow. So that's what they're all talking about, Jonathan. That is, well, the mainstream are not talking about that bit because that doesn't fit the narrative. So
it's just typical cherry picking, isn't it? Really, like we'll look at all these things and look at this one number, which happens to be a bit. But it's the same with there's any medication out there, really. Yes. You just you might take aspirin, for example. It might be great for headaches or a bit of inflammation, something like that, but are you going to be able to take that every day if your condition is chronic and not, not acute? It's probably going to cause lots of downstream other effects anyway. So I think that's one of the things. I mean, once you get one comorbidity, use one medication or some sort of pharmacological intervention to match it or try and defeat it, then you end up taking more things just to deal with it again. So you're looking at polypharmacy here. And I think that's what's probably, in my opinion, probably causing a lot of the issues, resulting people in needing multiple medications for multiple comorbidities. Because like we always talk about, it's looking for root cause fixes, not, oh, here's a pill, here's a medication, here's a jab that just fixes everything. So you got to work around these sort of things holistically, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there, because I mean, I had a brilliant session with Liz, the Black Box Warning TV. She worked for Pfizer and other pharmaceutical companies. And she was saying, I mean, you just mentioned polypharmacy. She was saying she has got non-disclosure agreements, so she can't be too specific, but she was saying the general practice is if they've got 2 drugs in a trial and one can fix a condition, let's say, like you just say, headache, and the other one can maybe fix a headache, but it could also give you constipation. So a satellite drug could be sold. They'll go down the route where the satellite drugs are an option as well, which, is business. It is business. But, anyway, Coach Casey is saying good morning. It's afternoon here in the UK, but I'm happy wherever you are if it's morning. Lorraine is saying good morning. The Feral Grandma, good supporter. Hello. Polish Mike, good afternoon. Craig is saying ahoy from Cornwall. You know Craig, do you?
I know Craig, yeah, great guy.
Yeah. Joss Sleep and Slim Down Journey. Hey.
She's called Jo, Stephen. I thought I'd just tell you.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. Ben, good morning. Very early for me. Okay, where are you, Ben? Then I wonder. Gaza's in France, if I remember rightly. Hi all. Ricard is from Sweden. Yes. Polish Mike went for a morning rucking earlier today and now chilling watching Liverpool versus City. But who do you support out of those two, if anyone? And Zbigniew, which I definitely know is one of your followers, hit the like button, which I always forget to say. You have got to do that. I'll come to the questions in a minute. Ben saying there was a Sydney study of PUFAs, which was not published for 40 years because the results were disappointing. Read Dr. Mason. Yes. I'm in communication with Dr. Paul Mason's office at the moment, trying to get him on. Cami is saying something.
Thanks, Swedish or whatever.
Yes, I'm Swedish. Yeah.
Sounds
Ben is in Sydney, Australia, and Teddy is from Dallas, Texas. Sounds good. All around the world. Not many UK people, actually. And Sparkling or None, I like the name, is from Scotland. So where do you find most of your followers?
I guess probably the same as all of us, really. We're looking at 40 to 50% being from the US, about 20-30% from UK, then the rest would be Australia and Canada. A few in South Africa, a few in India. But it does tend to match the demographic of commenters as well, so it sounds about right. Is it similar for you? Or?
Yeah, well, yes, but I think the lives are really different, aren't they? They seem to be all around the world. I think mine are mainly sort of mainly UK and America based, but actually, when we do a live, there's loads of people from all around the world, or maybe I just don't ask. So let me just I'm trying to get some pictures out of the way. Hang on. I've got a small screen today for some reason, and I want to show you something that one of my clients sent me. I'm going to quickly show you this. Ooh. This was from he's undergoing treatment of cancer, and this is what the ward had out for him and all other cancer patients. They put this out for everybody in the cancer ward, the oncology department. What do you reckon?
Hashtag Randall cycle all over. I don't. I mean, it is such a contradiction, really, because if I went to a dietitian and I said, I had fits recently, what diet should I follow? Oh, it turns out that ketogenic diets are good for people that have fits. It reduces their incidence rate by 30 to 50%. Brilliant. Okay. Where are my ketogenic animal foods in this trolley? Sweet chili pork, minced pork, low quality meat. Here's your pasta. Here's your rice. Here's your fruit juice. Okay. Yeah, that's going to be helpful. That's going to reduce the reoccurrence rates of fits. No, Honestly, Stephen, the only animal food I could get in hospital last week, whatever, was grated cheese. That's the only pure, unadulterated thing that wasn't like ultra processed. So,
it's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. Right, let's get into a question here from Lisa Carnivore. Lisa Carnivore, right? Okay, high triglycerides over 170 and high liver count over 60. I would assume that's ALT, AST.
Usually.
Yeah, carnivore for 15 months. Any suggestions? Could you have any hidden carbs in your diet? Are you having a lot of dairy, for instance? That could be one of the things. Alcohol, another one, can contribute. Artificial sweeteners actually can do this. So, especially if you're, having a fatty latte with a sweetener, a lot of fat and also an artificial sweetener is not the best thing in the world. What else have we got? So that would be the triglycerides and the liver enzymes. 15 months, you're probably out of the adaptation phase. So I don't know. A lot of fat soluble vitamins can do this as well. So I don't know if you're doing that. I would actually want a bit more detail, to be absolutely frank with you. Because with liver, you need ALT, AST, ALP, GGT, probably bilirubin as well. Triglycerides, I wouldn't mind also knowing your HDL. So, yeah. What do you think, Jonathan? You must have some thoughts on that.
I don't really worry too much about triglycerides at all when I see a blood test from any of my clients. I mean, I'm not a world expert when it comes to blood testing and understanding these sort of reference ranges and values, but I think the body's just going to do what the body's going to do regardless. You've got to identify, of course, the right metric. So what do we know on a blood test? We can say this number being high means this is damage. Well, that's what I want to know. I don't want to know these arbitrary other numbers. The other thing is if it is ALT, for example, that's 60. I mean, I must be honest, I know people that have higher numbers of all these things, like about 60, like a bit over the reference range. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily deleterious. Some people do just run a bit higher. But like you said, I'd be looking at the ALP, LT, AST, BUN. Then beyond that, you're looking at getting some sort of ultrasound on your kidneys or something to actually look. There's a structural deformity, there's scarring here, there's flow issues here, or whatever it happens to be. So if I was that concerned, I would be looking into that personally outside of the obvious numbers that you mentioned and values.
Yeah, there's just not enough information, Lisa. But thank you for the question. That's really appreciated. A few people, Craig, there is summing that up. Cancer wards are looking for repeat business. Yes, absolutely. But I'm laughing at that. But it isn't funny. You're absolutely right, Gaza, because that's not going to help people recover at all. So, yeah, as Cami says, that's atrocious. But I feel the problem we've got is it's really difficult to complain about anything and be taken seriously because the NHS just don't want to listen. So I don't know about you, but I have so many people that get better with this way of eating. But when they go to the doctor, the physician or consultant doesn't want to know what they're doing. Do you find that?
Absolutely. I mean, I've always had a very interesting experience with healthcare services. I'll sort of caveat what I'm about to say with I respect everyone that works within these sort of industries to try and promote health, but the reality is a lot of people, there's a lot of middle management, there's not a lot of time, there's a lot of faff, paperwork, very little care. When I was in hospital recently for about 24 hours or something, I had a total of 9 minutes of care. But in that time, I was not given water. I was told that I wasn't hungry because I didn't want to eat mush, basically. Because these things, if I feel horrible in hospital, I'm going to feel worse if I eat food that makes me feel bad. I explained this to them, and it's all my medical records and notes and things. What else? Asked for pain relief. 3 hours later, nothing. Turns out there's a communication issue. They didn't bother to tell me, oh, we can't give you any because we're not sure about your current condition, your current values and things. And I said, okay, which values are you particularly worried about in my blood test, so I at least know, and I can go to Stephen and ask him what the real answer is. Yeah, luckily they sort of said, oh, your EGFR was this, and I'm like, okay, are you discounting the gold standard nucleotracer test I had about 2 weeks ago? They said, well, it's just a different number. I'm like, well, no, you got one good measurement here, and you're looking at the terrible measurement that isn't appropriate for people with my muscle mass build sort of thing. So you're sort of detracting from best practice here. So they didn't know what to say, and that's between a doctor, a nurse, and also a expert consultant. So I was given no pain relief, no food, no water, basically. I could have probably hassled them for it, but me being autistic, I don't want to. I don't like stress. I don't like asking 4 times for things. It's a bit old,
So Joe, I got it right, is asking, do you think the cost of carb junk is being cheaper than more nutritious foods, the main driver for NHS menu options? Well, I think it's part of it, absolutely. But it is short-sighted. I can give you an example of a cost of a couple of blood tests where, we use the EGFR as an example. EGFR costs them about 50 pence, not even a pound. And the cystatin C costs them about £2.50. So, yeah, 5 times the cost. But it's probably more than 5 times more appropriate and going to give you the right diagnosis and the proper treatment. And therefore, in the long run, it's cheaper to do the right thing. But I definitely think cost is a huge factor. I think the food guidelines, the Eat Badly plate, as Zoe Harkin calls it, has a big influence on what you're being served. So, but yeah. And the thing is, but Jonathan has experienced that sort of disdain for you wanting to eat properly. So there is definitely an anti-eating properly sort of agenda, or a species appropriate diet is definitely not encouraged. What do you think, Jonathan?
I absolutely completely agree. I think it's all the things you mentioned. I think one thing that perhaps is more relevant to people in a palliative care setting, if you've got 2 weeks left to live, and that's very likely your sort of outcome, are you really going to want to care that much about what you're eating? You just want to eat junk food. And if your energy levels are that low, because you can't get enough nutrition in, then yeah, in that instance, I mean, if a Snickers bar keeps you energetic for an extra day or two versus eating nothing, it's probably a better option. But that's a very, very specific circumstance. We used to have something when I was volunteering down the road from where I live here, about 4.5 years, called the Jolly Trolley. That was a trolley of alcohol, and you get a bucket of ice. You go and say, "Oh, what drink would you like?" And they're like, "Oh, I like Baileys with milk and ice cubes or something." They quite like that. But the thing is, the vast majority of people in hospitals are not receiving palliative care. It's not reflective of what a truly healthy dietary approach is, really. And I mean, what they'll do, it's with anything they do. It's like McDonald's. You get to McDonald's, oh, we're going to increase our healthy food options. Okay, you've got a burger here with French fries soaked in oil. We're going to give you a carrot stick as well, just to balance it out. It's illogical. It doesn't.
Yes.
It doesn't take away from. What Phil Escott often says is, it's the subtraction method, not the addition method. So that's how we get better health. I mean, I know people that eat the least amount of foods, in terms of variety, probably have the best health outcomes. So.
Yeah. Now Lisa has given us, I can't find it now. Yeah, a bit more detail, which is you see now. Look at this detail showing you how different it is once you find out that the HDL is 2.6 millimoles per liter. So that triglyceride to HDL ratio is 0.74. I was just doing the calculation. Well, that's outstanding. So you're probably someone that's running slightly higher in those two metrics, but it is, as we often say, it's not about the raw number, it is about the ratio. So I think I'd really love to see the rest of your blood panel, because that's really fascinating, because that's very high HDL. And I think that would have some bearing on why your triglycerides are allegedly high. you know, and because you've got that high level of HDL, you know, I don't find things very concerning with that now. So yes, if we had all the other numbers for your liver, that would be really great. Anything to add, Jonathan?
No, I mean we think of a lot of people. You can look at just a handful of numbers, like 2 or 3 numbers on a blood test that actually do mean something imminent or critical. You know, a CRP of 500 is something's probably going wrong. You know, we can sort of look at those sort of things, and outside of that, it could just be the body just doing its thing. And yeah, we also need to look at the trend as well. You know, a lot of these numbers, they like you've said before about like testosterone and cortisol, like you can have a test done one day and have the same test the next day. It'll be a drastically different number. So you need a baseline, you need a sort of middle point and a trend over the years or months.
Yes, yeah, that is absolutely brilliant. Yes, so yeah, I always do say that, so that's good. A trend is better than a snapshot in time. Fatty food, Canadian dollar, $6.99. Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Let's have a look at the next question. We don't want it to be all about bloods, do we? I mean, there can be other questions. Jonathan here is like the expert on supplements, and he's a nutritionist that's, you know, got experience as long as your arms. And, you know, don't waste the time. Get a question in. So anyway, I don't know how to pronounce that. How would you pronounce that?
Urshka.
Oh, right, okay. Female, 44, carnivore, 9 months, LP PLA2 639, blood pressure average 159/95, liver enzymes okay, insulin low, high sensitive CRP low, homocysteine okay, HDL triglycerides fine, CAC score of 100. Is the LP PLA2 concerning? No, not really. Some people would say yes. If you look at the context of the coronary artery calcium scan, oh, by the way, this isn't a personal doctor-patient relationship. This is just information, but this information is out there. So, if you look at the context of everything else, no, it's not concerning at all. You have no plaques, basically, no calcium around on your coronary arteries, so that's pretty good. I would say many people would say that your blood pressure is a little high. I wouldn't personally. I think it's adaptive. Possibly it's a little bit high, possibly, but I actually think with all those other markers, there might be reasons. I don't know if you're training a lot. Don't know when you did your blood pressure, did you take 3 readings? Were you at the doctor's? Was it white coat syndrome to put it up? So I'd like to know more what's going on. I know you say it's an average, but where's the average coming from? What was your hydration status? When did you take it? Was it left arm, right arm? There's a lot. But if you look at everything there, that's pretty good. So the LPPLA2, or some people call it a plaque test, you know, it can be raised for many reasons. It's protective. It degrades oxidized LDL. That's one of the things. So I don't think it's problematic at all. But again, it's one of those things. I'd love to see the whole context, and I certainly would think in 6 months. Now I would love you to get something like an oxidized LDL test, and then in 6 months do the retest with all those numbers plus the oxidized LDL, and I think you'll find that the PLA2 will have done its job, and the oxidized LDL will go down. So I think it's pretty good. And if your blood pressure was down as well, that over the next 6 months, that would take that down a little bit. But Jonathan?
It's quite an interesting assortment of numbers, really. I mean, it sounds pedantic, maybe, but I'll be interested in knowing the actual CRP levels, the actual homocysteine levels. Because we know, like the low range could be 0 to 5, I believe. Is it 5 and before? 2 years ago it was 1. So it's a quite a big increase. So that's what I'll be looking at. I'd probably do another test down the line. I'd personally keep an eye on the blood pressure just to make sure it doesn't go specifically too elevated. But Stephen's completely right. Some people do just run a bit higher, which is quite normal. I wouldn't, but the other numbers seem okay to me. So that's all I've got to add, really.
Yeah, it's what. Yes, you see, I like the way you keep me on my toes, because having the actual numbers, it's all. Yeah, you're right. It's all well and good saying the low, high, or whatever, but you just hit the nail on the head. The high sensitive CRP is one I actually do use to illustrate this point, because, like I say, the range can be 0 to 5, and someone could be 6 and have a big red flag on their bloods. But what's the context of that? Well, I've seen people where it's 100 or 120. You mentioned Phil Escott. I think his was 120 at one point when his arthritis was bad. So he would have killed to be at 6. So it's all relative, isn't it? I think. The super chats coming in. It'd be nice to have a few more. So the 199 from DeVille. Oh, there we go. It's all flicking around. DeVille, thank you very much. 199. That's really good. Joe, a super sticker at £3. I think I got that for saying the name right. Yeah. Or you did, yes.
Bonus, yeah. She's a great content creator, by the way. She's got her own sort of interesting health journey. Should be great to talk with you, Stephen, about something down the line, maybe an interview or something. Right. Mixed kind of diagnosis, very way beyond my scope of understanding of physiology in that regard. And yeah, actually runs 2 channels. So she runs one channel which is a children's storytelling kind of channel, and I think she'll be a very popular YouTuber down the line. She tells really interesting stories, like related to her viewers. So someone might write in and say, "I've got a kid called Jeannie. I don't have much time to read storybooks to her, but she'll actually create a story for them and animate it and all sorts. It's really cool."
Yeah, well, I'm always interested in getting new guests on. Like I say, I did mention I've approached Dr. Paul Mason's office, and Belinda Fecky is she replied to me, and I think she's coming on as soon as she can get a day and a time. But I also like people, that are not influencers who have got a great story, because it's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, your story's pretty good, isn't it? when you think about it.
My story's bizarre. I'm like the only person who hasn't changed their life with a carnivore diet, but it's more a case of I know what happens if I go too far off it. So yeah, my story's very weird, definitely.
Yeah, yes, but you're also doing what we just spoke about. Is that, well, how bad would it have been if you didn't do carnivore? So it's a sort of yin and yang thing, isn't it? Really. So yeah, it's
absolutely
good. Let me just have a look. Oh, Coach Casey has done a super chat as well, which is fascinating. The super chats, they come up on a different thread, and if you try to put them on the screen, it doesn't do it. So I've got to go somewhere else to put it on there. So let's just have a look, and we'll let Jonathan take center stage first, because he definitely needs to shine. So let's have a look. Ramble. Oh, got it here. I've got it here. Oh, ramble here. Do you recommend ox bar for someone without a gallbladder and not fat adapted? My mum recently went strict carnivore and can only tolerate a pad of butter in addition to the fat on her meat.
Yeah, so cheers, Casey. Appreciate that, and it's a really good question.
Yes.
What I'd probably do is use that in mind and actually scale down my initial dose if I was that person. So typically people are using something like, it does vary a lot. So maybe 250 milligrams to, I've heard people using up to 1,000 milligrams per day of ox bile. We'll see during the same time you have it with a meal. I'd personally look at something like Tudka, just because it's a bit cheaper. It's more of a direct kind of like lock fits the key fits a lot kind of supplement, if that makes sense. In which case you might be using something like maybe 300 milligrams per meal. That will have a liver protective effect, help with all sorts of things, inflammation as well. Also, obviously, the absorption side of eating, taking the food in as well, will be improved. Outside of that, I mean, Casey, what our answers will usually be, because you're very educated yourself. So it might be a case of obviously splitting up your meals a little bit. But yeah, a lot of people just can't tolerate much fat. So, I mean, your appetite is a good indicator of how much you should be taking in. But then what your body does is a whole different thing. So I think just having the pad of butter with each meal is a good sort of start. And if that's a particular issue, you can look at other fats. So some people might have raw animal fats that might be, the actual adipose tissue of beef fat. So before you even cook it up, you might just eat a bit on the side. Rendered fats can be problematic for some people as well. So you don't want to be in a situation where everything's pouring out of you. But I'd look at certainly making sure the food you take in is being digested properly, so not drinking too much water with meals. Try to keep that at least half an hour each side of your meals or her meals, just so you're not diluting the stomach acids and bile acid and things like that, which you absolutely do need to tolerate more fat. Is there anything else, do you think, Stephen?
No, I think I like the fact that you can go off and say, well, actually, this is better. I mean, when you're not fat adapted and you haven't got a gallbladder, you still produce bile. Your liver is still doing it. So that's the first thing I want people to be aware of. And the duct becomes a surrogate sort of gallbladder anyway. So you will get there eventually. And when you supplement, what you're doing, you are doing the right thing. You're supplementing what your body is producing, but you could also argue that you could hold back on the fat or eat smaller meals more often and let your body catch up. So it depends how patient you are. If you really want to get into this, all supplements are exactly that. They're supplementing something that's lacking in your body or in your diet. So you look at Jonathan, right? If he looked like that, but his left bicep was not as developed as his right bicep, that's feedback. I'm not saying that happens, by the way, but we'll use that as a silly example. And I could say to Jonathan, have you never noticed your left bicep is, not as big as your right bicep, doesn't look as good? Well, that's feedback. And he would be able to go, oh, well, I need to supplement my exercises with extra on my left side. Or, well, hang on a minute, I'm doing more reps on my right side. So it's just, if you're struggling with any, so now we know that you haven't got the gallbladder, so your bile production is, not as good as it was, but it could come back with training. And the way to train it is to do smaller meals more frequently, so you're not overloading it. And literally, I'm trying to tie it back to that analogy. It's like a progressive overload. You just keep building up, and eventually your liver will catch up. So you're training. Yeah. You're training it. Yeah. So, right.
Casey, I can say my mum is more animal foods based nowadays, but she struggled for the longest time to become fat adapted, just because for the first however many decades of her life, she was not eating a lot of animal foods and not a lot of fat. So for her, you're trying to rewrite the script in your own body. So I'll be patient if I were you with your mother. Obviously aim to sort of increase it over time, like Stephen says, but also appreciate the fact that you can't force it. It's not because then your body just goes backwards because you're not digesting anything because your guts are upset. You're giving it too much to deal with. So yeah.
Yes. Right. Okay. So let's do the next bit, which is the next question. Sorry. Ben, I'm now doing regular. I just want to make sure I'm not jumping the queue with Ben's question. I'm not right. I'm now doing regular 3-day water fasts as a way to re-establish low carb discipline, in brackets, still the chocolate and alcohol. Does the cereal sweet count as food in regards to mTOR, etc.? No, well, the cereal stuff doesn't spike mTOR at all. Do you think Ben's saying that he's breaking his water fast with chocolate and alcohol, or is just using the fast to get away from it?
I think he's saying that he has a problem with chocolate and alcohol. So he's using it as a way to sort of steer his taste buds away from wanting those foods. Almost like maybe not an addiction, but just change his body's sort of like reaction to them, so he notices that it's not good for him.
Okay, cool. Nice one here for fatty food with the name like that. Here we go. And I know it means fatty as in like, hanging with the kids. That's fat. That's good. Anyway, right. Okay, I'll ask about my bad constipation. Last one before carnivore. Now eating raw beef fat and beef broth. Did you just have a magnesium 150 milligram magnesium citrate pressure? Guessing pushing is not good. Tips.
Very subjective one, isn't it, Stephen?
Yes.
I mean, I know people that go around and they're struggling all the time. They're running all the supplements there is, but unless you're sort of there in the toilet with them, you don't know what pressure pushing is, sort of thing. You don't, like I guess you sort of have to work out how constipated the person is.
Yes,
yes,
that's
you
very
really do
low.
it. It's like still
The magnesium.
the dosage is low.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I'd have like 400
so,
to 600 milligrams, to be honest. I mean, I've got to get the joke in. I've got to get magnesium shit rate in, because that's that's my joke. But that's pretty low. So you've mentioned that. I think that you could definitely have like 4 times the amount there. And I think, but I would be very careful. I would try, as you're doing 150, I'd try 400 first, because if you go straight to 600, you might be writing about diarrhea and explosive toilet habits.
You can easily switch around. I mean, magnesium's a very interesting supplement. It's one of the few things we can't really, as carnivores, we can't really say we're deficient in it, but it's something that I routinely see in people's diet plans and supplement plans that seems to help. It seems to give an effect. So yeah, I mean, magnesium citrate itself, in terms of the compound versus the molecule or the elemental value, is about 10%. So I believe they're getting around 15 milligrams of magnesium elemental form each dose, which is not a lot. And like Stephen says, you can really push up the doses. I'm using it currently at extremely high dose for pain relief, managing symptoms, really. I don't do that with magnesium citrate, because obviously I'm going to have issues, but I use it with magnesium threonate and magnesium glycinate, which are more we say gut neutral, but they do pour water to the colon, I guess. They also help with digestion and help with muscle what's the word, reduce muscular tension, sort of thing. So it does work in theory, but I'd look at increasing the dose. And it might not be necessarily that you do 600 in one go, but maybe 150 at night, and you do 150 in the afternoon. Give it a few days, then up it from there, sort of thing. So
yeah, nice feedback. We got Lainey. I have no gallbladder, don't have large amounts of fat, but I use an ox bile supplement every day and find that helps. Yeah, I think but we're not anti-ox bile. Definitely, I've got somebody very close to me, a client who uses ox bile, and it's been she actually said life-changing. So yeah, it can be good. Timing of it is often very important. George is saying he sat next to Lainey, and she's got no gallbladder, and ox bile supplement has really improved. So Dr. Nelson suggested it. So yeah, and then we've got people saying I found lipase to be helpful as well in the adaptation phase. There's so many different ways to approach these things. I think that's one of the things I would say is there's never just one answer with carnivore, because so many people are so different. Let's have a look at the next thing. Right. I think we're catching up with the questions, which is good. Let's get rid of that. Yeah. Right. Okay. This is interesting. Do you want to go first? Is temporary high blood pressure necessary for an appropriate postprandial insulin response? Not sure if I'm understanding the relationship properly. Do you want me to go first? Up to you.
I'll have a quick stab. You'll be much more complete with anything I miss, obviously. But yeah, I mean, my blood pressure does go up. My heart rate does go up when I eat. Your body's trying to, and when you eat, a lot of the blood volume in your body is trying to go to your stomach to deal with it. It's trying to increase the enzymatic rate, the efficiency of breaking down food. So that's why when you have a big meal, you'll often feel lightheaded, because a lot of the blood is actually rushing to your guts. Obviously, to facilitate that, you're going to need more blood pressure to make sure it stays where it needs to stay. And I'm not saying like you lose all the blood in your head, sort of thing, when you eat. It's not that. It's just the proportionality, if it changes a bit. I wouldn't worry too much about it, if I'm honest. And if you're concerned about it particularly, I mean, what I'd say is look at it over the course of a whole day. Your blood pressure. I'm quite an interesting anecdote in that my blood pressure will be higher during the day, but when I sleep, it will be much lower. But when I look at the 24-hour period, it's actually quite normal, or maybe slightly low normal. So, and that's what I'll be most concerned with. It's the same with the, like when you eat a meal, it's the area under the curve. What was your body doing for the majority of the time? Because having one spike in the day isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's when it's chronically overloaded. that's when you know you're actually feeling symptomatic of high blood pressure. That's the problem. But what do you think, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, you will see a slight increase in blood pressure after you eat, but it's not a necessity, because that's the question, isn't it? Is it necessary for an appropriate postprandial insulin response? No, not at all, because the body will do what it needs to do, and the insulin response will be appropriate. And if it needs a little bit of extra blood pressure to, like Jonathan says, supply other areas with nutrients and sufficient iron or whatever is needed, then it will do it. I think we've just got to trust our body a little bit more. But yeah, it's not necessary, but it is a thing that occasionally happens. Sometimes it doesn't. But, yeah, it's a good question. Good sort of biology question or physiology question. Right.
Always a lot of good questions, gentlemen.
Yeah, get your brain working. That's a good thing. Hello, any thoughts on carnivore keto diet for someone with polycythemia, which is too many red blood cells? In what respect? So, if you've got too many, well, that could change, because what tends to happen is your whole hematology panel can change with carnivore, because I'd need more. Basically, to be honest, I'd need more. I'd need to know your red blood cell distribution width and MPV and everything, really, your complete blood count, because I'd want to see. The body, as we just said, is really smart. So let's say you have too many red blood cells. Well, you might not have too many, because they might be, on average, slightly smaller than everyone else's, or they might have a lower per blood cell hemoglobin concentration. So your body produces more, because for some reason yours are slightly smaller, to get the amount of hemoglobin up. And this is the thing. Jonathan put it greatly. You want to see more than one number, because I think the context is explainable diagnosis. So if you get my drift, if I have a nurse who's been around sick people, and she's always got very low blood cell count, always. Well, is that because her body's never had a day off sick, by the way? Well, is that because she's around a lot of sick people and she uses a lot of red blood cells, white blood cells? So there's a context there. Or she could just run that way. She could just have a body that only needs smaller amount of white blood cells. So to answer your question about it in the context of carnivore, well, you are going to have an overall healthier body. You're going to have more proteins and fats to make decent red blood cells. And I think over time, you might see that isn't a concern. And this is also critical where your fluid balance comes in, your electrolyte balance. Drinking too much water will increase your blood plasma, and therefore all your concentrations in the readings will look smaller. If you're dehydrated, they will look greater. So we need to get the hydration status right. And then you start looking into the fact that, when you have too many red blood cells, it is allegedly making it more viscous, which is why hydration matters. If it's too viscous, too thick, then you get problems, as much as you can get problems where it's too thin. And that's where this is really where actually me always going on about hydration and drinking too much water comes from. If you drink too much water, you dilute your blood to the point where the shear stresses actually get worse for the arteries, because you've got thin blood. When you've got very thin blood, it's more open to turbulence, and then you have to get into fluid dynamics, which is, if you look at the artery, and if you imagine the blood flowing through, and imagine like little circles, so we could, that's your blood going through. Where it's nearer the wall, there is a certain amount of resistance, so it's slower. And through the middle, it goes faster, which is what shear stress is. So you've got those resistance from the wall. And even if you believe in the exclusion zone, all this still happens. It's all the same, because if there is an exclusion zone there, you still get the effect of the edge and the center, making the flow of blood different. If it's thinner, the blood flowing through the middle will go faster than those at the edge, and that will cause that is the definition of shear stress, which can cause a problem on the arterial wall. So Oh, a little question there, but it makes so much sense if you think of it all the way through. So if you look at your urine and it's clear, with your condition, it may be good in your situation, but I'd need to know all the other numbers. So that would be a rare case where I'd say, well, possibly clear urine is actually going to work in your favour. But it's unlikely when you're carnivore that will still stay the same, because I think as you eat this way, the makeup of your blood cells is going to change. So, that's it. Right. Sorry, I've bored people there with a bit too much information, I think. Anyway,
I learned something there, Stephen.
Did you? What did you learn?
I didn't know about the thinness of the blood impacting how it hits the walls of the vessels. I just thought you dehydrated. I didn't think it's actually on a circulatory level that it changes how the shearing force of the actual blood vessel.
And this is where well, you do know it, Jonathan, because you talk about it. I've heard you. Where you talk about the predictable places where plaques are and turbulence, and that's so that's the mechanics. Maybe I've added the actual mechanism where that happens. So if you ever think of any fluid, but blood in particular, which is what we're talking about, you've got to think of the fluid dynamics of it, and this is where when you look at diabetic problems at the peripheral, so the toes and the fingers and stuff like that, all of that is greatly exaggerated because the arteries are so much narrower. So those shear stresses in the smaller arteries make a bigger difference, which is why you have those problems. And anyway, great, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed that. This one gets me, which is Tracer Labelle. Saw something this week that eating fat can cause diabetes if you consume too much. Is this true?
We know who said this. I think there is some truth to it, but the likelihood of it is quite slim. The idea is the more substrate of any kind you put into your system, your body through food, the more it potentiates things happening. Effectively, it's having a massive surplus in your body. Now, is it likely with fat? It's a lot less likely than carbs. Fat itself is very satiating. It's self-limiting in that you can't really. I don't know people that can eat 1,000 grams of fat per day, but I know people that can eat 1,000 grams of carbs per day. Which one's more likely to cause you to have diabetes? Well, the one that's measured, identified, and mechanistically completely involved with diabetes, which is elevated blood sugar, which is a chronic overflux of carbohydrate within the system in the form of blood glucose. So it's too much in the cell, causing damage to the cell through glycation. I think it's certainly possible, but I mean, I think people are digging into the weeds a bit. That sort of, you're looking at problems that might not exist. Now, if your protein is too low, but your fat is really, really high, it's even less likely to come true. But the problem with that is you might lose muscle mass, therefore your pool or capacity to deal with high amounts of food is a lot less. You're going to have less GLUT4 uptake of different substrates downstream. So that's the problem. So I think it is certainly possible, but the likelihood is very slim. I don't think it's very,
See, I wouldn't be as magnanimous as that. I would pretty much say flat out no. Because when you do look at the people that say fat causes diabetes, their main tenet of their argument is with all this fat, the glucose can't get into the cell. Well, don't have the glucose. You don't have the carbs. I'm really paraphrasing, but that when you look at it, and I always, the way we both learn, Jonathan, is we're open-minded. We try and find out, and if something's new, it's like, that's interesting, I want to find out. That's the only way to sort of move ahead with knowledge. So, I've watched stuff and I've listened to people and I've read stuff with this theory. But when you distill it, it always boils down to the fact that they believe diabetes is the lack of entry into the cell for carbohydrate. Well, if you're not worried about eating lots of carbs, you're not going to have that problem. It's just, that's me. Because when you think firstly, when you think about how do we reverse it? Well, we reverse it by removing carbohydrates. We don't reverse it by removing fat.
Mm.
So, and also, fat could be implicated because some of the studies where they say it's fat is the problem, they use processed foods, so that's fat and carbs and protein. So, I love the fact you were, a bit more placating than me. I can't see it at all, really, to be absolutely frank, and more from clinical experience. I don't think I've ever said to anyone, even when I was a high carb advocate, cut down the fat and this will regress your diabetes. I also understand what you're saying, because too much of anything can potentially cause problems. But yeah, I've not seen it in 16 years of doing this.
We can take that anecdote, Stephen, because obviously you have expertise in diabetes and obesity management and healthcare, sort of health science. So you've not seen it. You've not really seen the clear, sort of obvious mechanism where you've studied it or looked into it. So it's kind of like, it might be like 1 out of 1,000 people might have that problem. The likelihood of it is so slim.
Yes.
So you can only go by what you see on the field. Ultimately, your experience trumps anything, really. I mean, you would have noticed it. So
yeah, we were talking about signals at the beginning. There's no signal to that being a potential issue, none whatsoever. So let's have a look. There's a couple more live things come up. Diabetes used to be called the sugar illness in Sweden, aptly named. Yes, I mean 2,000 years ago, diabetes was called the saccharine disease in Asia as well. So yeah, lots of things point to that. Last question then. This is great. Really simple one. Jonathan, thank you so much for being on. How much potassium iodine do you recommend to get iodine? And do they need to be in capsules or tablets? I think this is a deliberate question because I do talk about this a lot. First thing I would do is an iodine clearance test, which is where you're given a prescribed dosage of iodine, and then over 24 hours, your urine is collected, and then we get a flat out definite answer of whether you're deficient in iodine. That's first thing. Secondly, when you do, let's say it says you are deficient, then I would look at potassium iodine tablets because of the delivery of the dosage is really good. And you can get 150 micrograms, you can get 225 microgram tablets. So that's better than, if you think of a drop, you get a pipette, you take a drop. Well, my squeezy bit to the pipette might be different to Jonathan's, might be different to yours. So the dosage is a little bit variant. If you want to get really sciencey about it, that's why the tablets work for me. But you don't have to use the tablets. But I think tablets are the best, or capsules, but not drops. Jonathan, you're the man. You're the supplement man. So I got my little bit in first.
Yeah, I think the problem I see with the potassium iodide supplementation is that the dosages can vary enormously. When I say enormously, I mean I've seen people dose 100 milligrams. I've seen people dose several hundred. So it makes you think, how much does the body really need? The other thing is working out how much of it do you need to get the effect. How deficient are you? Then how long would you have to take it for? It's one of those supplements that I think is. I almost want to say it's got clear mechanism action of how it works and how it benefits people, but I think how people apply it is the big bottleneck. So it's. I mean, I'd personally start with the lowest possible dose capsule or tablet, then work up from there. And I'd give it a good amount of time between each sort of increment. Obviously, the more sort of minerals you take in the body, the more it can displace other things. So effectively, imagine you've got a wheel of minerals. You'll find that magnesium is involved in lots of them, and it will help lots of different minerals to be absorbed, like cofactors. You might have something like calcium, big molecule, big element. That can displace a lot of other things. Then you have things like zinc and copper. Too much copper can displace zinc and vice versa. So that's my main concern with using things like that at very high doses. There are forums online where you can look into them for more severe health conditions, but that seems to be very experimental, and I don't know. I mean, I just had so many mixed reports on it. I mean, I've currently got one client that uses it, and probably have only ever recommended it about twice in 3-4 years. So it's not to say I don't think it's useful. It's just it's hard to get right.
Yes, it is. Right. Okay. So that's the end of the live stream. I'm going to go before my 6 o'clock in the Common Sense Carnivore online community. I just want to thank Jonathan once again for his expertise and time. Is there anywhere people can find you, Jonathan?
Yeah, I recommend following me on YouTube. That's Carnivore Muscle. It'll be on the screen somewhere, probably throughout this video. If not, you can get in touch with me through Instagram, and I've got a website, just carnivore-muscle.com. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and also Stephen for hosting this delightful Sunday late afternoon stream.
Cheers, mate. And thank you, everyone, YouTubers. Hopefully see you in my Common Sense Carnivore group, 6 o'clock. So in 5 minutes' time. Bye, everyone.